When my daughter told me I was too old to babysit my grandkids, I didn't argue. I just smiled, nodded, and quietly began setting in motion a plan that would make her realize sometimes the hands she pushes away are the very ones she'll be begging to hold again. Before we start, make sure you subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments, how would you react if your own child said that to you? I was once the kind of father who'd drive 5 hours just to fix a leaky pipe in my daughter's house. When her car broke down, I gave her mine and took the bus for months. When she became a mother, I was there every day, changing diapers, cooking meals, rocking babies to sleep so she could rest. Her name's Lydia, my little girl, the one who used to run to me with scraped knees and school ribbons. After her mother, Ellen, passed, Lydia became my whole world. Watching her raise her children was the only thing that kept me going. Every Friday, she'd drop off the kids, Emma and Caleb, at my house, and the place would fill with laughter again. We'd make pancakes shaped like dinosaurs, build forts with my old blankets, and end the nights with stories Ellen used to read. It was our little tradition, until the day it all changed. It started with a phone call. Lydia sounded distracted, her tone clipped. "Dad," she began, "you don't have to watch the kids this weekend." I chuckled. "Oh, big plans?" There was silence. Then she said, "Actually, I think we should give you a break for a while." I frowned. "A break? Lydia, I'm fine. I love having them here." Her sigh carried something sharp. "Dad, you're getting older. The kids are more active now. You almost tripped last time when Caleb ran by. It's not safe for you or them." I tried to laugh it off, but she wasn't joking. "Are you saying," I asked slowly, "that I can't handle my own grandkids?" "Dad," she said, that tone of forced patience in her voice. "You're 71. You should relax. Enjoy your retirement. We don't want you to overexert yourself." Overexert myself. Like loving my family was heavy lifting. Before I could respond, she added, "Jeremy's parents offered to help. They're younger, you know, more energetic." Jeremy's parents. The people who lived in that spotless suburban mansion and always looked at me like I was some relic from another century. "Right," I said quietly. "You go ahead then." That night, I sat alone at my kitchen table, the house too quiet. The toys Emma and Caleb had left behind sat in a basket by the couch. Their laughter still echoed faintly in the corners. Too old. The words circled my mind like vultures. I wasn't angry, not at first, just hollow, forgotten. But the more I thought about it, the more something inside me hardened. I'd built my life on sacrifice. For her. For that house she lived in. For those grandchildren who bore my wife's smile. And now, suddenly, I was disposable? No. If Lydia thought I was too old to be needed, I'd make sure she truly understood what it meant to need me. And when that moment came, she'd come running back. Not out of obligation, but because she'd have no other choice. The next week, I called my lawyer, an old friend from my construction days. "Charlie," I said, "remember that house I bought for my daughter 10 years ago? The one in Denver?" He chuckled. "Hard to forget. You almost broke your back renovating it yourself." "I'm putting it under review," I said. "Transfer ownership back to me until further notice." There was a pause. Trouble? Just preventive maintenance. He didn't need to know more. Meanwhile, I stopped answering Lydia's calls. She texted once, saying, "Dad, are you okay?" I typed out a reply, then deleted it. For the first time in decades, I let her wonder. Little did she know Jeremy's energetic parents were about to find out what responsibility really looked like. And soon, Lydia would learn that age has nothing to do with strength. Because a week later, Lydia came knocking at my door. Her perfect suburban calm shattered, mascara streaked, voice trembling. "Dad," she whispered, "I need your help, please." But it was far too late for please. When Lydia told me I was too old to babysit, she thought she was protecting me. In truth, she was protecting her pride. But pride is fragile, and it only takes one storm to tear it apart. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and tell me in the comments. Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? For 3 days after that call, the silence between us stretched like an invisible wall. No visits, no phone calls, no Emma, no Caleb. The house that once rang with cartoons and giggles now hummed with the low, lonely tick of the kitchen clock. I tried to keep busy, cleaned the gutters, replaced the bulbs, even mowed the lawn twice in 1 week. But no task filled the emptiness. The truth was, I wasn't missing babysitting. I was missing being needed. That feeling had been my lifeline since Ellen passed away. She'd always said, "Harold, a father never stops being a father. Even when they grow up, they still need your steadiness." But what happens when your own child decides your steadiness is a burden? It was a Thursday afternoon when I saw her car pull into my driveway. A silver Lexus, spotless as always. She stepped out looking perfect, as if her whole world hadn't just shifted without me in it. "Dad," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "I wanted to check in, make sure you're doing okay." But I leaned against the porch railing. "Doing fine, enjoying my retirement, just like you suggested." Her cheeks flushed. "Dad, don't be like that." "Like what?" I asked. "Old? Weak? Disposable?" Her jaw tightened. "You're twisting my words." "Am I?" Before she could answer, Jeremy's SUV pulled up. He got out wearing his usual smug expression, pressed shirt, phone in hand, talking about stock portfolios before he even reached the porch. "Hey Harold," he said casually, giving me a nod that felt more like a dismissal. "We were just in the area, thought we'd drop by." I looked at him, then at my daughter. "You don't drop by after cutting someone out of their grandchildren's lives," I said quietly. "Dad," Lydia whispered warningly. Jeremy put an arm around her, that fake chivalrous gesture he always used when he wanted to look like the good guy. "Let's not make this dramatic," he said. "We just thought you deserved to rest, that's all." "Rest," I repeated, looking past him to the kids in the back seat. Emma waved eagerly through the window. Caleb was busy with a juice box. They didn't know anything had changed. Jeremy followed my gaze. "They'll visit soon," he said. "We've got a lot going on right now. Lydia's new client, my promotion plus. My parents are helping with childcare. They're naturals." I smiled faintly. "Naturals, huh? We'll see." He didn't understand the weight behind my tone. But Lydia did. I could see it in her eyes, something nervous, uncertain, like she could sense the balance of control starting to shift. 2 weeks later, the cracks began to show. A neighbor of Lydia's, old Mrs. Carver, stopped by my house with a pie and a story. "Your daughter's been having a rough time," she said, lowering her voice like she was sharing a secret. "I saw her rushing out this morning. Looked like she hadn't slept. Heard the little one's been sick." I nodded slowly, pretending not to care, but inside, I felt that familiar ache. Caleb had asthma, just like his mother did at his age. I'd kept her inhalers beside her bed, carried her to the hospital once in the middle of the night, when her breathing went shallow. And now, the people Lydia trusted, the energetic babysitters, probably didn't even know where the inhaler was kept. That night, I called Charlie again. "You remember that transfer I asked for?" I said. "It's processed," he replied. "Technically, the house is back under your name now." "Why?" I smiled. "Let's just say I'm preparing for a visit." The next morning, I drove to Lydia's neighborhood. The air smelled of manicured lawns and too much money. Her house, my old house, sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, looking immaculate from the outside. But as I approached, I noticed something off. The curtains were half drawn, toys scattered across the porch, and faint shouting echoed from inside. Through the screen door I heard Lydia's voice cracking with frustration. "Jeremy, I told you to call the doctor. He can't breathe right." "I'm on hold," he snapped. "Where's his medication?" "I don't know. My mom always handled that stuff." She stopped herself mid-sentence, the silence after those words louder than any argument. My heart clenched. I stepped onto the porch and knocked, once, twice. When Lydia opened the door, her face was pale, her eyes red. "Dad," I heard shouting, I said simply. "What's going on?" Her lips trembled. "It's Caleb. He can't breathe properly. The inhaler's empty. I can't find the spare." Behind her, I saw my grandson slumped on the couch, gasping softly, his little chest rising and falling too fast. Jeremy was pacing with his phone. "They said to go to urgent care, but it's 20 minutes away." I brushed past them without another word, heading straight for the bathroom cabinet. I knew exactly where to look. Top shelf, Left corner, behind the cotton pads. That's where I'd always kept the backup. I found it within seconds, checked the nozzle, and knelt beside Caleb. Hey buddy, remember how we practiced slow breaths? He nodded weakly. I guided him through it, one steady breath at a time. Within minutes, his breathing slowed. The color returned to his cheeks. When I looked up, Lydia was staring at me like she'd just seen a ghost or maybe a guardian angel she'd forgotten she had. Dad, she whispered, her voice breaking. I didn't know what to do. I stood, placed the inhaler on the coffee table, and met her eyes. That's the problem, Lydia, I said softly. You forgot that I did. Behind us, Jeremy's phone buzzed with a new message, something that made his face go white as chalk. He turned to me, stammering. Harold, what did you do to the house? I smiled faintly. Oh, I said, you'll find out soon enough. Jeremy's face turned white as the words left my mouth. He didn't yet understand what I'd done, but he would. When you spend your life building something brick by brick, you don't let arrogance tear it down. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe and tell me in the comments, what would you do if your own child treated you like a burden? For a long moment, no one spoke. The only sound was Caleb's quiet breathing, steadier now, and the faint hum of the air conditioner. Then Jeremy broke the silence. What do you mean? His voice cracked slightly. I glanced at Lydia. You didn't tell him? She looked confused, then terrified, as I reached into my pocket and placed an envelope on the counter. Inside was the updated property document, complete with my lawyer's signature. This house, I said calmly, has been under my name for 2 weeks. Jeremy's phone buzzed again, the sound harsh in the heavy air. He looked at the screen and went pale. What is this? He hissed, reading the email from the county clerk's office, confirming the title transfer. It's called a correction, I said. I realized I made a mistake giving it away before my daughter learned to value it. Lydia's mouth fell open. Dad, you can't just... Oh, I can. And I did. I built this house, Lydia. Paid for every brick. I let you live here, rent-free, because I wanted my grandchildren to have stability. But instead, you used that comfort to push me away. Tears welled in her eyes. We never meant to. Yes, you did, I interrupted quietly. You wanted independence. Well, now you have it. Jeremy stepped forward, anger replacing fear. You can't do this to us. We've made improvements. We've paid property taxes. Paid with my money, I said. And as for improvements, I've seen the marble countertops, the designer furniture, all bought on credit. You live like kings in a castle you didn't build. Lydia's shoulders slumped. Dad, please. The kids will always have a home, I said, softening for a moment. But that home may not be this one. I left before she could say another word. The sound of my boots on the driveway was the only rhythm I could focus on. I didn't want to see her cry. Not yet. Not until she understood why. Back home, I sat at my old kitchen table, the same one where Ellen and I had made every major decision in our lives. Her photo still sat by the window. I did what I had to, Ellie, I whispered. Maybe she'll finally see. But deep down, I felt the ache of guilt twisting in my chest. I didn't want to hurt Lydia. I wanted to wake her up, to remind her that family isn't something you outsource. Still, I knew things would get worse before they got better. And I was right. A week later, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Dad, Lydia's voice trembled on the other end. Jeremy's parents backed out. They said they can't help with the kids anymore. Mom's condition, his mom. She fell and broke her hip. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. Sounds like you've got a lot on your plate. Her breath hitched. I do. I'm working overtime. Jeremy's company's cutting hours. And the daycare. Dad, it's over $400 a week now. I don't know what to do. I could hear the tears she was holding back. For a brief second, the father in me wanted to rush in and fix everything. But the man who'd been dismissed as too old stayed silent. Maybe, I said slowly. You'll figure something out. You and Jeremy are smart people. Dad, click. I hung up. It hurt. God, it hurt. But lessons that heal don't come easy. 2 days later, I found a note on my doorstep. Not a call, not a text. A note, written in shaky handwriting. Dad, we need to talk, please. It's about the house, And the kids, I'm sorry. I drove over that evening. The driveway that once gleamed with Jeremy's new car now sat empty. Boxes were stacked by the porch, and through the window, I saw Lydia sitting on the floor with Emma in her lap, both crying softly. She looked up when I walked in. "Dad," her voice cracked. "We can't stay here anymore. The bank sent a notice. They're calling in the loan for the remodel. We can't afford it." I looked around the house that used to feel alive, now hollow, like a shell of her pride. "I told you," I said gently. "You built this on sand." "I know." She covered her face with her hands. "I thought I could handle everything, Dad. I thought I didn't need help." "Help," I said quietly, "isn't a sign of weakness. It's how families survive." Just as the tension softened, Jeremy walked in, carrying a thick envelope. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. He placed it on the table. "This is all that's left," he said bitterly. "We sold the car, cleared the debt. We've got $5,000 and nowhere to go." Lydia looked at me, desperate. "Dad, can we stay with you, just until we figure things out?" I studied their faces, the arrogance gone, replaced by humility and fear, the kind of fear that strips people down to who they really are. I sighed, then nodded slowly. "Yes," I said, "you can stay, but not for free, not anymore." Jeremy frowned. "What do you mean?" "I'll let you stay," I said evenly, "if you both learn what responsibility actually feels like. You'll cook, clean, help around the house. You'll do for me what I once did for you." Lydia blinked in disbelief. "Dad, are you saying—" "I'm saying," I interrupted softly, "if I'm too old to babysit, maybe you're never too young to learn humility." Her lips parted, but no words came. Jeremy just nodded, defeated. That night, as I sat in my armchair, I could hear the muffled sounds of Lydia washing dishes, Jeremy putting the kids to bed. My house, quiet for months, was alive again. Ellen's photo caught the lamplight. I could almost hear her whisper, "You didn't lose them, Harold. You just reminded them who they belonged to." But as I closed my eyes, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, because the past has a way of resurfacing. And one secret about that house was still buried. And when they discovered it, everything would change. I thought bringing them back home would bring peace. I was wrong, because buried under that roof was a secret I'd kept from everyone, even from Ellen when she was alive. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe and tell me in the comments, what would you do if your family discovered something you'd hidden for decades? Lydia and her family had been living with me for nearly 3 weeks. The first few days were tense. You could feel the discomfort in the air like static. Jeremy tried to stay polite, doing yard work and pretending it was his idea. Lydia cleaned obsessively, as if scrubbing the floors could erase the humiliation of losing her home. The kids adjusted quicker than anyone. Emma filled the house with chatter again. Caleb started leaving toy cars under my chair legs, like little traps, and honestly, I didn't mind. The noise was a reminder of life, of warmth. But behind the laughter, something heavier lingered. I could see it every time Lydia looked at me, shame mixed with confusion, like she still didn't fully understand why I'd taken the house back. I hadn't told her everything. Not yet. Because the truth wasn't just about pride or revenge. It was about protection. One evening, I came home from the hardware store to find Jeremy in my study, rifling through the file cabinet. "Looking for something?" I asked, voice low. He jumped, slamming the drawer shut. "Oh, hey, Harold. I was just trying to find the property tax records." "You know, for the house." I crossed my arms. "Property taxes are my concern now, not yours." He smiled nervously. "Right, of course. Just trying to stay on top of things." But I saw the paper sticking out of his pocket, the edge of a manila envelope. And I knew exactly which one it was. He'd found the envelope Ellen had labeled years ago, "For Lydia, when the time is right." My heart kicked against my ribs. That envelope was the secret I'd protected all these years, the reason I'd never truly let go of the house. That night, I retrieved the envelope from Jeremy's nightstand when everyone was asleep. I stood under the kitchen light, staring at it. The edges were yellowed from time, the handwriting faint but still graceful. Ellen's handwriting. I remembered the night she'd written it. She'd been weak from chemo, her voice a whisper. "Promise me you won't give her everything at once, Harold," she'd said. Make sure she learns to stand on her own feet before she inherits what we've built." At the time, I'd thought she meant money. But inside that envelope was something else. A second property deed. Not for the house Lydia had lost. For another one. A small cottage in Estes Park. Ellen's favorite place. The one she'd secretly bought years before she passed. It was supposed to be Lydia's inheritance, their mother's last gift. But I'd held on to it, waiting for the day she'd truly understand what family and responsibility meant. That day was coming sooner than I'd planned. The next morning, I found Lydia sitting at the kitchen table, her hands wrapped around a coffee cup gone cold. "Dad," she said quietly, "Jeremy's been distant, angry. He thinks you're doing all this to humiliate us." I sighed. "Do you think that?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I don't know what to think anymore. I miss Mom. I wish she were here to tell me what to do." I pulled out the chair beside her and placed the envelope on the table. Her name, written in Ellen's hand, made her gasp. "Mom's handwriting," she whispered. "Dad, what is this?" "Something your mother wanted you to have," I said. "But only when you were ready." Her fingers trembled as she opened the flap. Inside was the deed, the key taped to the top corner, and a folded letter. She unfolded it slowly, her lips moving silently as she read. Tears streamed down her face before she even reached the end. She left me a house?" "She did," I said softly. "But I didn't tell you, because she made me promise not to. Not until you learned that a home isn't just something you live in. It's something you earn, something you protect. And you can't protect what you take for granted." Lydia covered her mouth with her hand, her shoulders shaking. "I was so blind, Dad. I pushed you away, and you still—" I reached over, taking her hand. "That's what parents do, sweetheart. We protect you, even when you think we're the enemy." For a moment, everything was still. The morning sun spilled through the window, landing on Ellen's old flower vase. The one Lydia had once said was too old-fashioned. Now she looked at it like it was a relic of gold. Later that afternoon, I stepped outside to find Jeremy loading his car. "Going somewhere?" I asked. He shut the trunk with a little too much force. "Just a break. I need to think. Your daughter's got a house now, thanks to your surprise. So I guess you don't need me around." I studied him for a moment. "You know, Jeremy, sometimes it takes losing everything to realize what you've been given," he sneered. "You think you're so wise, don't you? You're just an old man clinging to control." I smiled faintly. "No, I'm an old man who remembers what it's like to build something with your own hands." He drove off without another word. Lydia came to the porch minutes later, eyes swollen from crying. "He's gone, isn't he?" "For now," I said. "But sometimes, when the wrong people leave, it makes room for the right ones to stay." That night, Lydia tucked Caleb into bed in the guest room, whispering stories Ellen used to tell her. I stood in the doorway, watching her hum the same lullaby Ellen used to sing. She turned to me and smiled through her tears. "You were right, Dad, about everything." But just as I started to smile back, headlights swept across the window. Jeremy's car. He wasn't alone. And when I saw who stepped out beside him, my heart dropped. It was a man in a gray suit, one I recognized from my past. My lawyer, Charlie. And that could only mean one thing. When I saw my lawyer, Charlie, step out of Jeremy's car, I knew this wasn't a social call. I'd trusted that man with my will, my finances, my family's future. And if he was here on Jeremy's side, then something terrible was about to happen. Before we continue, make sure to subscribe and tell me in the comments. Have you ever trusted someone, only to find out they'd been working against you the whole time? Jeremy and Charlie stood side by side at the bottom of my porch steps, the evening light turning their faces to shadows. Lydia hovered behind me, her hand clutching the doorframe, her body trembling. "Harold," Charlie began, his voice careful, too formal. "I think we should talk privately." I crossed my arms. "If it involves my daughter or this property, you can say it right here." Jeremy smirked. "Fine. Let's not waste time. We're here about the deed. You had no right to transfer ownership without notifying us. Lydia and I lived in that house for over 8 years. That gives us equitable interest." I raised an eyebrow. "Equitable interest? You mean squatters' rights?" Charlie shifted uncomfortably. "Jeremy's correct that under Colorado's co-ownership laws, Long-term residency and substantial investment can establish partial claim. My heart sank. You're representing him now? He didn't answer, just lowered his eyes. Lydia stepped forward, her voice cracking. Charlie, how could you do this? You've known my father for years. I'm sorry, Lydia, he said quietly. But Jeremy contacted me with paperwork, and he offered a retainer. Of course he did. Jeremy adjusted his tie, smugness returning to his face. So here's how this will go, Harold. You sign a statement acknowledging that Lydia and I are co-owners of the Denver house, and will drop any claim to your estate. I laughed softly, a sound colder than the air. You think you can blackmail me into giving you back what you threw away? Jeremy's expression hardened. You're not untouchable anymore, old man. Inside, I could see Emma and Caleb watching from the staircase, their little faces pale with confusion. My heart broke for them. They didn't understand this war between the people they loved most. Dad, Lydia whispered, tugging at my sleeve. Please, let's just talk about this inside. I nodded slowly and led them into the living room. As Jeremy and Charlie followed, I noticed Jeremy's eyes darting around, scanning the house like a predator. My late wife's photos, the worn furniture, the old clock that still chimed every hour. All of it seemed to offend him. Once seated, I folded my hands on my knees. So tell me, Jeremy, what exactly do you want? Simple, he said. Control over the assets, the properties, everything. You can't manage them forever. You're getting older. It's irresponsible not to have a proper succession plan. Lydia's voice trembled.
Jeremy, stop.
This isn't about that house anymore, is it? He turned to her sharply. This is about securing our family's future. You think your dad's decisions are stable? He's emotional. He's unpredictable. That word unpredictable echoed in my mind like a gunshot. That's what people said about Ellen when she got sick. That's what they'd use to dismiss her choices, her strength. Jeremy, I said, voice steady, you're standing in a house you didn't build, talking to a man whose blood paid for every inch of it. You talk about responsibility, yet you've never carried any. He leaned forward. You're clinging to power because you're afraid of dying irrelevant. Lydia gasped. Jeremy, but I only smiled. You're half right, I said. I am afraid, but not of dying. I'm afraid of leaving my family in hands that don't deserve to hold it. Then I did something that froze both of them. I reached under the old coffee table and pulled out a black folder. Inside were documents, old but perfectly preserved. Ellen and I anticipated this, I said. We set up a living trust. Everything, every property, every investment is already transferred. Jeremy frowned. Transferred to who? I looked at Lydia. To your children. He blinked. What? That's right, I said quietly. Not you, not Lydia, not me. Everything belongs to Emma and Caleb, held in trust until they turn 25. Lydia covered her mouth. Dad, I couldn't let greed ruin what your mother and I built, I said. We built this for our grandchildren, so they'd grow up knowing the value of legacy, not entitlement. Jeremy's face turned red. You can't do that. I already did, I said. And Charlie knows it. He drafted the paperwork himself, 15 years ago. Charlie's silence was all the confirmation I needed. Jeremy lunged forward, grabbing the folder, but Lydia stepped between us. Stop it, she screamed, tears spilling down her cheeks. You're making it worse. He froze, breathing hard, his pride shattering into panic. You think you can just cut me out? He snarled. You'll regret this, old man. I stood slowly, meeting his glare. I already regret giving you the benefit of the doubt. He stormed out, slamming the door so hard the family photos rattled on the walls. When the sound faded, Lydia collapsed onto the couch, sobbing quietly. I sat beside her, my heart aching. Dad, she whispered, you didn't have to do this for me. I didn't, I said gently. I did it for them. I nodded toward the staircase, where Emma and Caleb were now asleep, their heads leaning together. So they'll grow up knowing love isn't a transaction. She looked at me through tears. I'm so sorry for everything I said. I didn't mean to hurt you. I squeezed her hand. I know, sweetheart. You just forgot what family means. Now you remember. She nodded, crying harder. Outside, the night wind carried a faint chill. Somewhere beyond the trees, Jeremy's car engine roared to life. But I didn't watch him leave. I didn't need to. That chapter was closing itself. As I locked the door and turned off the lights, I caught my reflection in the window. Older, yes, but not broken. I whispered softly into the darkness. You were wrong, Lydia. I'm not too old to babysit. Because the truth was, I was still protecting them, just as I always had. But what I didn't know then was that Jeremy wasn't finished, and his next move would threaten everything, even the grandchildren I'd sworn to protect. I thought the storm had passed. I thought Jeremy's departure meant peace. But some people don't know how to lose quietly. And when pride and greed mix, they always come back louder, crueler, and more dangerous than before. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments what's worse, betrayal from a stranger or betrayal from family. The days that followed were quiet. Too quiet. Lydia and I fell into a rhythm again. I cooked breakfast. She got the kids ready for school. And for the first time in years, we sat down at the same table without raised voices or tension. Emma would tell me about her piano lessons. Caleb would show me the tower he built from wooden blocks. And sometimes, Lydia would just look at me with that mix of nostalgia and guilt that only a daughter could carry. I thought maybe, just maybe, we were rebuilding what had been broken. But every night after the kids went to bed, I'd see Lydia sitting by the window, her phone lighting her face, waiting for a text that never came. She still loved him, even after everything he'd done. And deep down, I knew that love would come back to haunt her. It was a Thursday evening when the doorbell rang. I was in the garage fixing Emma's bike chain when I heard it. 2 sharp rings, impatient. Lydia answered, and I heard her voice, shocked, trembling. Jeremy? By the time I reached the living room, he was already inside. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair disheveled, but his eyes burned with that familiar arrogance. Before you say anything, he said, raising his hands, I'm not here to fight. I just need to talk. I stayed silent, arms crossed. Lydia hesitated, then motioned toward the couch.
Fine, but make it quick.
He sat down, elbows on his knees, eyes darting between us. I lost my job, he said finally. They let me go last week, said the company's downsizing. I didn't buy it. Men like Jeremy never told the full truth. Lydia's voice softened. Oh my God, Jeremy. He looked at her, desperation carefully disguised as humility. I know I messed up, but I need a chance to fix things. For us, for the kids. I shook my head slowly. You've had chances. You used every one of them to take, not give. He turned to me sharply. You think I don't see through you? You've wanted me gone since day one. I met his glare, because I saw what you were long before my daughter did. His jaw tightened. You think you're the hero here, Harold? You're not. You're a bitter old man controlling everything, because you're scared of being forgotten. Lydia's voice cracked. Stop it, both of you. The kids were watching from the hallway again, wide-eyed. And just like that, the peace we'd built began to crumble. That night, after Jeremy left, Lydia came into my study. She looked exhausted. Dad, she said softly, I know you don't trust him, but he's still the father of my children. I can't just cut him out completely. I looked up from my desk. Lydia, he's not coming back for family. He's coming back for control. Don't let him manipulate you again. Her lips trembled. You think I don't know that? But he's desperate, Dad. He has nowhere to go, I sighed. There's always somewhere for a man like Jeremy. He just doesn't want to earn it. She turned toward the door. You've always been my rock, Dad, but maybe I need to stand on my own for once. The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were so familiar. They were the echo of her own mistake. When she left the room, I looked at Ellen's photo on my desk. She's about to walk straight into the fire again, I whispered. 2 nights later, I woke up to the sound of a car door outside. I looked through the blinds. Jeremy's SUV, parked crooked in the driveway. The porch light glinted off the windows, and I could see movement inside. I threw on my robe and stepped outside. The air was cold and tense. Jeremy, I called out. He turned, startled, clutching something close to his chest, a stack of papers. What are you doing here? He didn't answer. Instead, he smirked. You think you're clever, old man? You think hiding those trust papers protects you? I froze. What are you talking about? He lifted the folder, the same one from my study. I made a few copies, he said. Maybe a lawyer would be interested in taking another look. Maybe a judge, too. You can't just lock money away from its rightful owners. There are laws, Harold. I stepped forward, anger rising. You stole from me again? He sneered. You're not the only one who can play smart. I've got options now. Just then, the porch light flickered on. Lydia stood in the doorway, her face pale. Jeremy, what have you done? He turned to her, his tone softening instantly. Baby, I'm just trying to make things right for us. Her voice cracked. By stealing from my father? He opened his mouth, but she didn't let him speak. Get out, Lydia, I said. Get out, she screamed, tears spilling down her cheeks. For the first time, Jeremy looked truly lost. He dropped the papers, turned toward the car, and drove off into the night without another word. Lydia collapsed into my arms, sobbing. I should have listened, Dad. I thought he'd changed. I stroked her hair gently. We all want to believe the people we love can be better. That's not weakness. It's hope. But sometimes, hope needs boundaries. We sat in silence for a long time. The only sound was the wind outside, whispering through the trees. The papers Jeremy had dropped were scattered across the porch. I picked them up, one by one, careful not to let the ink smear in the damp night air. Among them was something I hadn't seen before, a loan application in Lydia's name, forged, my signature copied at the bottom. He wasn't just after revenge. He was building a trap. I stared at the fake document, my pulse pounding. Dad, Lydia whispered. What is it? I swallowed hard. He's not done with us, I said quietly. He's trying to drag us down with him. And for the first time in years, fear, not anger, filled my chest. Because I knew what came next. Jeremy wasn't coming back for forgiveness. He was coming back for blood. When the police came to my door, I wasn't surprised. I'd been waiting for them. Because if there's one thing I've learned, in 71 years, it's that desperate men don't go quietly. They drag you into the mud with them. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments. Would you protect your child if it meant putting yourself at risk? The morning after Jeremy stormed off, I woke to a knock that sounded like judgment itself. 3 firm raps, official and cold. When I opened the door, 2 officers stood on my porch. Mr. Harold Finnegan? One asked. Yes, I'm Detective Morales. This is Officer Pike. We'd like to ask a few questions about some financial documents submitted under your name. Behind me, Lydia froze mid-step, still in her robe, eyes wide. What kind of documents? I asked. The detective opened his folder. Inside were photocopies. My forged signature glaring up at me like an accusation. A loan application, Morales said. Filed 3 days ago for a sum of $75,000 secured against your property. The bank flagged it for review after inconsistencies. Lydia's voice broke. That's not possible. Dad didn't. Morales looked at her with a kind of weary sympathy. Ma'am, we're not making assumptions. We just need to confirm his statement. I nodded slowly. I didn't file it, but I know who did. At the station, I gave them everything I had. Jeremy's forged papers, his threats, the trust documents he'd tried to steal. Morales listened carefully, jotting notes in a leather-bound pad. So you're saying your son-in-law attempted to impersonate you, to secure a loan against your property? That's exactly what I'm saying, he nodded. That's a serious offense, but we'll need evidence linking him to the submission. I reached into my pocket and handed him a small flash drive. That's the security footage from my front porch camera. You'll see him there, dropping those papers the night he came back. Morales raised his eyebrows. You keep a camera? I smiled faintly. I'm too old to babysit, apparently, but not too old to be careful. When Lydia and I returned home, she couldn't stop apologizing. I never should have let it get this far, she said, her voice breaking. He's destroying everything you've built. I placed a hand on her shoulder. No, sweetheart. He's destroying himself. I'm just making sure he doesn't take you with him. That night she put the kids to bed early, but I couldn't sleep. The weight of everything pressed against me. Ellen's promise, Lydia's pain, the fragile peace I'd tried to rebuild. I sat in my study, staring at the old photo of Ellen on our wedding day. Her eyes seemed to follow me, soft but stern. You always said love could save anyone, I murmured. But what if love's the very thing that breaks them? The next afternoon, Morales called. We picked him up, he said simply. He tried to cash a fraudulent check at a private lender in Boulder. We have him in custody now. I closed my eyes, exhaling a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Thank you, detective. Lydia sat across from me, her hands trembling. He's arrested? I nodded. It's over. But she shook her head slowly. No, it'll never be over. He's still the father of my children. How do I explain this to them? Her voice cracked, and my heart broke all over again. Tell them, I said quietly, that their father made choices, and that choices have consequences. But you, Lydia, you can choose better ones. She looked at me through her tears. I wish I could be as strong as you. I smiled faintly. You already are. You just forgot for a while. Weeks passed. The court case moved fast. Jeremy pled guilty to multiple counts of fraud and forgery. The evidence was too strong to deny. Lydia testified once, her voice steady but her eyes full of heartbreak. When the judge read the sentence, 18 months, she didn't cry. She just nodded, as if finally closing a chapter she should have ended long ago. Afterward, we drove home in silence. The late autumn light filtered through the windshield, soft and forgiving. At a stoplight, Lydia whispered, Dad, thank you. For what? For not giving up on me, even when I gave up on you. I reached across the seat, squeezed her hand. That's what fathers do, kiddo. We wait at the end of the storm until you find your way home. She smiled weakly, tears catching the light. Months later, spring arrived. Lydia got a new job teaching at the local elementary school. The kids spent every afternoon in my backyard, helping me plant tomatoes and chasing each other around the old oak tree. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Lydia came out carrying 2 mugs of coffee. You know, she said, sitting beside me, I think Mom would be proud of you. I chuckled. Oh, she'd still scold me for meddling. Maybe, she said softly, but she'd thank you for keeping us safe. We sat there in the golden quiet, the smell of fresh earth and laughter filling the air. Emma ran up, her hands covered in dirt. Grandpa, look, we planted your favorite flowers. I smiled, watching her bright eyes, her mother's eyes. You sure did, sweetheart. You sure did. That night, as the stars came out, I looked at my family, what was left of it, what had survived, and realized something. Getting old doesn't make you useless. It makes you wise enough to know when to fight and when to forgive. My daughter said I was too old to babysit her kids, but in the end I didn't just babysit them. I saved them, and maybe, just maybe, I saved her too. So tell me in the comments, would you forgive your child after they hurt you like that? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that remind us. Sometimes, love doesn't retire, it just gets stronger.